You're listening to Night Dreams Radio with Gary Anderson.
Well, hi, everyone. I hope everybody had a great day. This is Gary, and you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Hey, tonight we got a special guest, a hip-hop artist. I'm going to let him tell you all about himself to you guys tonight, but we're going to talk about UFOs, aliens, being abducted, and a lot more. Hey, get a cup of coffee, get a nice sofa or a chair, sit back, and let's get going. And, let's see, are you there? Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, we got you there.
Awesome.
Okay, well, why don't you tell everybody what you do professionally and what got you into the paranormal?
Definitely. I'm a hip-hop artist. I do esoteric and spiritual hip-hop. Also have a podcast. Go by the name of Truth Seeker. And been doing this for a couple of years now. Been on a spiritual journey the majority of my life. And I cover esoteric, UFOs, aliens, these type of philosophies that are in ancient texts and having my own experiences as well. And I take all of these experiences and put them in my music. So do hip-hop music that's infused with these different stories of experiences that I've had dealing with angelic beings, ETs, aliens, shadow beings, all of these things that kind of go bump in the night, and have kind of made my own lane with the music. And awesome enough, people resonate with it. So it's kind of a growing genre that I've kind of created myself, and there's some other artists I'm affiliated with as well. So got started in this stuff by simply having my own encounters, even as a kid, but waking up in the middle of the night and seeing shadow figures in my room or on top of me in the middle of the night, having a sleep paralysis and things like that. So having all these crazy encounters as a kid, I just began to kind of get over infatuated with the occult, with the paranormal, and led me to music and research and things like that in those areas, and essentially led me to where I am today, studying under a lot of different religious groups and sects, many different realms of Christianity, different sects of witchcraft, Satanism, Wicca, different things like that, just trying it all out and seeing who had the truth and seeing what actually had power and where the energy was. And so all of that to be said, to kind of make a long story short, has brought me to where I am now, and doing this esoteric spiritual hip-hop.
Uh-huh. Wow. How old were you when you had your first experience?
The first experience I can remember, I was probably 4 years old, was waking up in my room one night and feeling the presence of these, what it seemed to be two huge shadow beings pinning me down to the bed, one on each shoulder. And I don't know if I couldn't speak. I knew I was too afraid to speak, to even cough. And, had this experience when I was a child. So as I grew up on into my teenage years and stuff, I would ask people about it. I would try to look up stuff with books and see scary movies that had similar, things in them. And like, man, I would see stuff in movies and say, man, I've seen something similar to that, So part of me always knew that was real.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. When I was probably maybe 8 years old, I lived in Seattle, but my grandmother and a lot of our relatives were in Oakland, California. And I spent the summer, one summer when I was 8 years old in Oakland with my uncle and then with my grandmother. And my grandmother lived in a real old apartment complex. It goes back probably around 1880s, 1890s. I mean, it was really old. And one night I was in bed there by myself and, in this strange room. And all of a sudden I saw a shadow come out of a closet. And I remember going under the covers and hiding. It was so scary. And then I talked to my grandmother, Sally, the next morning. And I said, hey, I saw a ghost out of the closet. And she said, well, that the place was haunted and that she saw them too. And it was kind of interesting because it was like a dark shadow just came right out of the closet and kind of slid along the wall. And there was no lights outside around there, so it couldn't have been any reflections.
Yeah, I would ask my cousins and friends like that, and a lot of people had, never had anything like that happen. But then you would ask certain relatives, and they would say, "Oh yeah, that's what they call, witches, and that, they're sent to, protect you and things like that." I was like, man, why? I was scared to death. You wake up in the middle of the night and something's pinning you to the bed, and so different people had different experiences with them. I remember even before it was big. Now, if you research this phenomena, you understand that there's someone called the man in the trench coat or whatever, the man with the black hat.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing. But I remember my cousin telling me whenever we was younger that he seen that shadow figure standing in the hallway, the man with a trench coat and a black hat. And then you find out that that's actually a thing that people encounter. There's tons of people who have said have experienced something like that. So I've done so much studying, so much research, and the weird thing about it is I can't actually tell you what it was. I mean, I can give you an opinion if it was a demon or a disembodied spirit or something like that. I honestly don't know. I do know that those people who have had these type of encounters at a young age seem to be marked to have some type of spiritual significance on the earth, whether they're called to study out the occult or the esoteric or spirituality. But many people, and probably rightfully so, if you have this encounter, this impression at a young age, it would kind of set you apart anyway. But most people, it's almost like they were marked for something, or maybe something on the demonic realm that knew that they were actually going to do a lot of good on the earth, trying to scare them and make them afraid even at an early age.
Yeah, I've had people say, "Oh no, they were angels." I don't know. I don't know if they are demon or they are angels. I just know that what I saw, it did not, threaten me of anything. But I mean, when you're a young kid at that age, just like you were, and all of a sudden you see something like that, I mean, nobody pinned me down like what happened to you. But I mean, to see something come out of the closet and just kind of slide around the wall and stop, and then go back into the closet was enough that it's burned into my brain. And, I mean, it was scary.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who talk about that stuff. And there's even another one where they call the old hag syndrome is what they call. Uh-huh. And they say they're being pinned to the bed, and you wake up and there's an old witch screaming in your face when you wake up, and it's pinning you to the bed. I haven't had that happened, but I had something similar. There's this weird in-between realm that I've experienced, and I remember going to this place as a kid of being really sick with the flu, of being really sick and just bedridden with the flu, and your mind takes you to these weird places. And I've been to some place very similar where I had entities or something screaming or standing next to you, and it's really weird because I remember it when I was a kid. And then every time I would get the flu or have a really high temperature, I would go to that same place that's only familiar to me when I was a kid, being really sick, and seeing that the old hag or this person, they can't make out exactly what's going on. It's kind of slippery, and when you're dealing with those realms, it's not just night and day. It's not just black and white. There's a lot of gray area there to try to understand what is going on. And so I think that there's a lot of people who are into the paranormal research and the occult type movements with just spirituality, and not even being used for anything negative, but people know that something's going on. And I think we all have a piece of the puzzle. We take our pieces that we've experienced and we've encountered, and we bring it to the table, and just look at the evidence for what it is, that something's going on. We might not be able to write a book and sell it and kind of base a doctrine off of what's happening, but something is going on.
Yeah, and and this has been going back for years and years, long before the internet. So, nowadays somebody could put up a story on the internet and 30 seconds later somebody's reading about it. But you go back to 1800s and 1700s. I mean, people then were talking about shadows and things like what we're talking about right now, and all over the world. So it has to be something that I feel is actually happening. I've had people say, no, it's just a figment of somebody's imagination or a dream. Maybe for some people they do have dreams that way, but I do think there's a certain percentage of people out there that have experienced that.
Yeah, I'm really big into the scriptures, and I come from a Christian background. So just studying the Bible and understanding, some of the obscure verses that angels and what we, may would call aliens or light beings and things like this, and Nephilim, and even studying the realms of the demonic, as it's mentioned of in the scriptures. There's a place in the book of Job where Job talks about this very thing. He talks about waking up in the middle of the night and seeing this figure essentially in the hallway hovering, and it's just like smoke, this mist or this fog. And I've had other experiences where they would seem just like this, and he talks about fear coming upon him and all of the hair on his body standing on end, and it talks about this entity or this spirit, whatever we want to call it, gives him a message, and they translate messages and vibrations and things with it. So I've had very similar experiences, and when you do read about it in ancient culture or in the Bible, for one, I think it's good for us to talk about this, that people can feel like they're not alone, that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be the only one who's interested in this stuff. I mean, if you haven't had any encounters, I mean, that's a good reason why you wouldn't be interested. But those who have, they want to get to the bottom of it. And a lot of times when we bring this type of stuff up at the churches or at the synagogues or mosques, they want to demonize everything and just say everything's demonic. And in this case, even in the scriptures where Job had this entity or spirit appear to him, this was probably just something neutral, something that brought a message or, just a vibration. Understanding in the Bible, the word angel simply means messengers. And when the angels, the spirits would come, they would bring messages for humanity, for a person, something that they were supposed to do in their lifetime, their calling, if you will. And so it's really refreshing